Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 10 minutes, and I'm very excited and pleased to welcome and introduce our guest today. I have with us Jesse Randall, who is a co-founder of Sweater, which is a venture capital firm. And Jesse, what else would you like us to know about Sweater?
Yeah, I mean, Sweater, it's not your average VC fund. We're actually focused entirely on allowing retail investors to put money into a VC fund. And we deliver the experience through a mobile app. So it's kind of like Robinhood, but for private companies and private ownership.
Got it. Great. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our questions. Our first question, tell us a success story that you've had with collaboration within a team.
Yeah, team collaboration, man. I think that the hardest thing about team collaboration is really finding alignment and having a common mission. I've had enough times where you're all working at the same job and you're told to march up the same mountain together, but your heart's not really there. And I think that's the weakest type of engagement because you're doing it out of obligation. Even if you may have passion for the company you work for, if you don't have the passion on the thing that you're doing, then it's really kind of hollow, right? And so the best times that I've ever had engaging with teams is when you have true, really deep alignment on the thing that you're doing. And in those cases, you're really able to operate and communicate, if you ask me, at a much higher level, right? Because it's almost like it heightens your senses, right? That engagement is able to elevate yourself up into a place where you'll be able to do things in a shorter period of time with better collaboration across the members of the team that you're with. I work in the startup world, right? So I've worked with dozens of teams and hundreds of founders in trying to identify and create that. And if you ask me, the teams that really take it to the moon are the ones that have the best alignments and that really have that core passion for what they're doing that's deeper than others. And you can sense it. It's really interesting when you really get into it, like those that are in it for the wrong reasons, because they see it, they can make money at it, or they think it's like a quick flip and like the ability to elevate their career or something, as opposed to those that are in it for a much deeper reason to make an impact, to make a change in the world. And it's something that they've felt inside their own life, right? And then they're able to sell that passion and that reason to the people they surround themselves with. And it makes the biggest difference.
Those are great comments because you're absolutely right. Without that alignment, and I like what you said about avoiding hollow alignment, because boy, that makes a huge difference if people are not excited or passionate about what they're doing. And that kind of leads into our next question. I've heard from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to measure engagement. What are your thoughts?
Wow, I mean, that is an intangible. In terms of measuring it, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about what you achieve, right? I mean, engagement is only as good as what comes out the other side. So again, I mean, like kind of going back to alignment and whether or not something's hollow. I don't think there's some metric or, like some device you can put on somebody's computer to see, how deeply engaged they are. I think that's ultimately the sum of emotional intelligence, right? I mean, there's lots of things that you can read with EQ. But engagement's one of those things. Like a good leader will really be able to sense when someone isn't engaged well before that person ever has to come to them and express whatever might be happening, from their mindset perspective. A good leader will see it instantly. They'll see it in the first meeting that person, that they sense that person doesn't have alignment with what's going on, and that their engagement is lacking, right? So I don't know if there's a good measurement for it other than the best leaders are the ones that can read it, and they're the ones that can confront it before it really metastasizes into something that's not fixable anymore.
Great comment about a good leader can really sense that and observe it quickly. I really like that comment. Question number 3, what essential characteristic of confident leaders would you like to recommend to our listeners and viewers?
Ooh, tough question. I think that the most important by far is empathy. Good leaders have the ability, I think it kind of leads into that whole notion of emotional intelligence again. But empathy is deeper than that, right? Because at the end of the day, every single person that you work with is just that. They're a person, they're a human, they have a life, they have feelings, they have things that motivate them and demotivate them. They have complications of things that are happening outside of work. And all of those other factors outside their life affect what they do when they're with you. And it doesn't mean that you need to know and understand every aspect of their life, but you need to be able to, as a leader, if you can actually relate on that level to the people that you work with, they will go to the ends of the earth, not for you, but with you, right? Mm-hmm. And that ability to be able to take a team, pull them together with that singular mindset, be able to understand the different things that everyone struggles with and love them for it anyway, and then take them to the finish line is what really good leaders are. And I think that the real core of that is empathy. I think that, maybe this relates, maybe it doesn't. My favorite, I guess, personality test or whatever you want to call it is Strengths Finder. And the thing that I love about that, and really, I guess it applies to most of these tests, but the thing that I love about that mindset is that it focuses on your strengths. Mm-hmm. And that there's really, they don't frame it like, these are your top 5 strengths and then these are your bottom 5 or your top 5 weaknesses, right? It's just, these are the ones that you're the best at and what you should frame your life around, right? In terms of focus and getting the most elevation out of who you are naturally. And so when you take any given person, there's no such thing as a weak person. Just because someone is, good at the things you're weak at doesn't mean that they're weak. It means that they're great at things you're not good at. And when you can stack people together in the right way, understand how they view the world and apply empathy into their world as they see and interpret the world, you will bring the very best out of people.
Great comments. Again, such important points about empathy and how important that is with great leaders, confident leaders that can show that empathy. I really like those comments, Jesse. Great comments. Question number 4, is there someone in your life that you would like to recognize that has made a difference in your life?
As a leader?
Sure, as a leader,
or
just as a person,
in general?
just anyone.
Oh man, well, without doing the typical stuff like, my wife or my mom, man, I've been able to work with some interesting characters. And I think that some of the best ones that have inspired me the most are the ones that are almost on my periphery, right? Not necessarily people that I worked with directly, but people that, it's like they're watching my life, from the grandstands. And then every once in a while they can walk into the dugout and, make some observations and they go back to watching. But they're not there on the team playing with me all the time, right? I mean, those are very intimate relationships when you're in those kind of situations. Mm-hmm. And there's something about, I don't know that I want to name anyone like specifically is like individual people, but I'm thinking of at least 4 or 5 in my life that have been instrumental in observing me and helping me to get out of my own way, especially when it comes to being in very specific situations. I think that's probably where these people have done the most good in my life. Is you get in these situations where you're so caught up in the minutia of whatever the heck is going on and all the garbage that led to it, and it's really hard to pull yourself out of it. And to have someone that knows you and knows your capabilities and knows frankly your strengths and even your weaknesses, right, and can kind of pick you up out of the situation, remind you who you are, remind you to be a bigger person and to look at the bigger picture and help you make that better decision, rather than making short-term emotional based decisions. It's probably been some of the most pivotal moments in my life personally and in a career kind of a sense. So probably not pulling out anyone in particular, but those are the people that came to mind, right? It's really interesting. I've worked with a lot of great people, but when you ask me that question, I'm thinking of those others that are kind of play a different role in my life.
That's such an interesting observation because we all have those kinds of people that kind of dip their toes in once in a while, but we don't necessarily have these really close, intimate relationships on an ongoing, everyday basis. But what a great observation that you've made about the people that still make a big difference in our lives, but may not be there every single day. So that's a great comment. Well, last question. Tell us about your first job.
Well, you're talking to a funny guy to get that out on the table. I grew up on a farm. So, I mean, my first job was shoveling manure and, building barbed wire fences and chasing cows. I don't know if any of that counts though, because I'm pretty sure I didn't get paid market rate for that. If you ask me, whether it was working for my own dad or working for my friends' dads, I mean, I got paid next to nothing and worked my tail off, got a lot of good calluses and, learned how to handle barbed wire without getting cut up. But I think my first outside job, if I really counted what it was was probably building houses. I did that when
Oh,
I was, yeah, so I built houses for a summer. And I think that was my real first official, like, not part-time job. Like, I did that full time, and it was when I was in college, and I did that for a whole summer. And I learned more framing houses than I ever did in a classroom. I mean, I still use that today. It's one of my favorite outlets, like, to just go and, cut something up, like, think something of it in your mind, right? And be able to understand how it should work, and be able to pull the materials together to actually build something real. It's probably one of my favorite things, frankly. I didn't get paid very much. I think I was being paid like $7 an hour to slave out in the sun. But I helped build a couple of houses over the course of that summer, and I still use that skill today.
oh, that is great. That is great. Well, I always like hearing that, the answers to that question, because it's interesting to hear how many people are still using skills or some type of attribute that they gained on those very first jobs, even now into their later career. That is awesome. Jesse, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn. If you just go to Google and search Jesse Randall LinkedIn sweater, you'll find me. I'm probably the only one that matches that. I mean, if you really, and send me a DM on there, I'm pretty active, and that's by far the best place to find me. I think that my URL extension is like Deviant Strat or something like that. But usually don't search for people in that way on LinkedIn. But if you look for Jesse Randall sweater, you'll find me there.
Very good. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, you can go to teamengagementpodcast.com. Again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. And we would certainly love it and appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, where all of these videos can be viewed, as well as the podcast channel where the audio version can be heard. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.